Hey girl, hey, and welcome to the Self-Love Fix podcast, where we get relatable, we share tea, and we support each other on this journey of self-love, self-worth, personal development, self-esteem, and self-care. Because why wait until it's too late to start becoming the best version of ourselves? Let's start today. And I'm your host, Beatrice. So let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Self-Love Fix. I hope you're doing well as always. Okay, so speaking of self-criticism and self-judgment, that brings me to this week's topic, which is no more comparing ourselves as a form of self-care. This is the third and final part of the self-care series, and I picked this one as last because I think it's a good way to wrap up the series, being that so many of us compare ourselves to others and judge and criticize ourselves in the process, and we all know that that's not okay, but so few of us actually know how to do something about it. And I think that in order for us to heal from it, we have to get to the root of it. Like, we simply have to get to the root. And a lot of times we think that other people are the source of our self-judgment, but actually they really aren't the source. Instead, they actually expose what we already feel about ourselves way down deep in there. This might be a little harsh and a little hard to hear, and it's definitely, like a hard to swallow pill, but believe me, it was hard for me too. Like, the first time I realized it, I was like, wait, people aren't the reason that I feel badly about myself. Like, they just expose what's already going on inside. What? And, the reason I say that other people expose how we feel about ourselves instead of being the source of how we feel about ourselves is because of the fact that how we feel about ourselves is up to nobody else but ourselves. Because if we leave it up to others, think about it. Then that would mean that we're just hot and cold, in a sense that we're happy and feel good about ourselves when others feel good about us. But the moment they don't like us or they don't have good things to say about us, then we also have bad things to say about ourselves. Or when we hop on social media, when we get, lots of likes and people commenting on how good we look, then we're over the moon. We're in high spirits. Does anybody say over the moon? I feel like I'm old saying that, and I'm not even old, but we're basically in high spirits, and it's like nothing and no one can bring us down type of a thing. We just kind of feel good. We're like, yes, I got all these compliments, people are liking and commenting, I'm good, everything's fine. But then the next time we don't get as many likes and comments, or the next time we hop on social media and someone else gets mad praise for the way they look in a picture, then we once again fall into that rabbit hole of feeling badly about ourselves, judging ourselves against someone else, and criticizing ourselves using them as a metric and the standard for what we should look like or where we should be in our lives. And maybe you're realizing you right now are kind of being hot and cold. Like I was saying earlier, you kind of have that pattern of when everybody else has something good to say about me, I'm good. But when they don't, then I'm not so good. Hot and cold, kind of you're not consistent. You change with the way other people change, if that makes sense. There's not just a sense of consistency. And, I was there too. Don't feel bad. I remember what that was like. I would scroll through Facebook and Instagram, seeing other people's achievements or accomplishments or new hairstyles, or someone who just looked really fit, and they had abs. And I would tear myself apart, comparing myself. I would be having a really great day. And then I would hop onto social media and see, I don't know, someone who went to the gym at 5 a.m. every morning, on the little Instagram stories. And I would criticize myself, wow, there's literally people out here going to the gym at 5 a.m. They're serious about their fitness. You barely go to the gym 2 times a week and you never get up early. That's why you'll never have the body you want. Back when I was concerned about all those kind of things. That's not the reason I go to the gym anymore. But back then, that's the kind of dialogue I would have with myself, or I would see someone who would have a ton of comments on a picture that they posted, and I would be to myself, wow, Okay, you barely ever get as many comments. Obviously, it's because you're not as pretty as her. Maybe if you put on a little bit more makeup next time, slay. I feel like that's how people on Instagram do these days, like every picture has to be a bloody, and look, I'm not even British, but every picture has to be a bloody photo shoot. And I'm guilty of this too. And you are too. Like, I feel like we all just do this thing where it's like, okay, my next Instagram picture, let me find a mural. Let me find a wall. Let me find some artsy fartsy place so that I can look, like I'm came here to slay. And I'm the type of person that can't, I like to do that, but I can't be bothered to do it every time, right? So, there would be times where I would look at people who did and I'd be like, okay, now next time you post a picture, you need to come to slay. You need to put on a full face of makeup because obviously that's why you're not getting as many likes and comments. Kind of ridiculous, right? But I feel like these are things that actually go on in our heads. These are, whether we realize it or not, whether it's subconscious or conscious, it happens. Am I right? I feel like we're maybe a bit embarrassed to admit it, but it happens. It really does in our heads. And before I used to say, I have to get off social media. It's making me so insecure. And while I do think, taking some time off social media can help you learn to focus more on yourself and more on, the awesome and amazing things about yourself, or learning about the awesome and amazing things about yourself, or rebuilding your self-esteem. I don't think that it makes sense to have the mindset that we want to cancel our social media or take a break from it for the sole reason that everyone else on social media is the problem. I say this in air quotes, everyone else is the problem. And the reason being, if everyone else is the problem on social media, then what about in real life? You know what I mean? Because in real life, you're likely to come across the exact same situations. People who get a lot of attention for the way that they look, or people whom you view. Look, I said whom. I even used the grammatically correct, grammatically correct language. I'm sorry. I'm like this in real life. But, the people whom you view as having it all together, which you might say makes you feel insecure. It definitely goes beyond social media is the thing. And it's absolutely frustrating, right? To live a life of constant comparison to others and insecurity in both social media and in our day-to-day lives. It's a lot. And I remember there was a time that I would tell people, I don't do well with strong personalities. That was my thing. I mean, I told a couple of my friends this. I thought it all the time. I was like, yeah, I just don't do well with strong personalities. And when I think about it now, it was kind of like it was a form of self-defense for my insecurities, in a sense that I was literally saying, I don't do well with people know themselves and know how to speak their mind, because it reminds me that I don't know myself and I don't know how to speak my mind. And at the time, I just did not want to admit that it was the truth and that I had trouble knowing who I was. But I was so intimidated by people who did that subconsciously I thought, if I could just get rid of them, then I won't have to be reminded of this. But at the time, I thought no, they're the problem. Their personalities are too strong. I don't like them. And that wasn't the case. It's that they reminded me of what I wasn't, or of who I wasn't. Right. And again, I know this is a tough pill to swallow, or is it a hard pill or a tough pill to swallow? A hard pill to swallow. But we've all been here. Earlier I spoke about how we need to figure out the root in order for us to heal. I said root pretty funny, huh? Root. In order for us to heal. And for me, my root of self-judgment and self-criticism was, me having a complete and total lack of love and appreciation for myself and my abilities. And when I say lack, I mean lack, as in if you asked me to tell you one thing I loved about myself, at that time, I would struggle, and it would probably be minutes before I could come up with some generic thing that I thought I liked about myself. I truly used to be in a place where I did not like anything about myself. Nothing. Not a single thing. Now, yours might not be as hefty, but I can, I invite you to consider what is your root of self-judgment and self-criticism. Is it that maybe you're a perfectionist and you feel that if you fall short of perfectionism, you have to judge and criticize yourself? Or maybe you were heavily judged and criticized in high school or grade school and still carry their voices as your own and judge and criticize yourself today based on the way they judge and criticize you then? you know? Or maybe you, and this one's gonna be another hard pill to swallow, but maybe you struggle with jealousy of others. And your way of coping with jealousy is to tear yourself down. And most people think that when people are jealous that they tear other people down, but sometimes you end up tearing yourself down when you're jealous. Everybody has different coping mechanisms. And there's a number of different things that could be the root of comparing, yourself to others. And I just want you to know that if you're able to identify what it is, and this, might take some time, you should be really proud of yourself. It takes a lot of inner work and a lot of laying the ego aside to be able to recognize the root of self-judgment and self-criticism, because it is so much easier to just blame everyone else for how you feel. And it takes a really strong person to be able to recognize that others aren't responsible for how you feel, but instead they can reveal how you truly feel about yourself. Recognize the good qualities within yourself that you admire, whether it's that you're compassionate, you're loving, you're optimistic, that you have really nice eyebrows. Hey, it's possible. Maybe you have really great edges. I mean, I can't relate, right? I definitely can't relate in that department. But if you have great edges, recognize that. Whatever it is, embrace it and understand that you not having, the abs or the straight white teeth or the super glam, always made up and done up look does not put you at a disadvantage. My words are all over the place today. It does not put you at a disadvantage. Sorry. Or it does not mean that you're lacking. It just means that you have something else going for you. And it's just something else going for you that's different than the next person. And if we spend all our time looking and browsing at what other people have that we don't have, then we are never going to have time to embrace what it is that we like about ourselves, or what it is that we have ourselves. And I promise you 100% that now when I look at what other women, and this is like no BS, this is the absolute truth, I don't ever feel lack. Now, I wasn't always that way, like I mentioned before, but because I did the inner work and I learned how to look at other women and admire or congratulate them without speaking ill of myself in the process, I learned that I don't have to put myself down in order to lift someone else up. And I can leave myself out of the narrative of when it comes to complimenting other people. I just, don't insert myself into the narrative. I just appreciate them and their accomplishments and move on happily. And it's the greatest feeling in the world. And I really, really hope that with, inner reflection, inner self-work, that you can get to this place too. And believe me, I know you will. It just takes time. And you'll get there. You'll get there too. So I really, really hope that you found this episode, the last episode of the self-care series, to be helpful for you along your journey. And I hope that if it does, that you can leave a review so I can see your thoughts for myself. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch you right here once again next time on the Self-Love Fix.